All right, we'll call the July 14th meeting of the City of Colleyville Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. Let me call the roll. Board Member Valerio.
Here.
Vice Chair Cameraman.
Here.
Board Member Shadle is absent. Chair Frank Carroll is here. Board Member Deacon.
Here.
And alternate Board Member Taylor Anderson, who will, in the view of Mr. Shadle's absence, be sitting as a member of the board.
Here.
All right. If all of you will please stand, face the flag, and join me in pledging allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our prior meeting. And I will ask if everyone's had an opportunity to review those, and are there any proposed changes in those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? We'll take the vote. Commissioner Deacon?
Yes.
Commissioner Valerio?
Aye. Yes.
Vice Chair Cameraman?
Aye.
Member Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion carries. All right. The next item on the agenda, I want to explain in advance several things. First, I would ask everyone to turn off your cell phones while you're in here. Second, when you come up, please give your name and your address. Only speak when you're at the microphone and nowhere else. Each person during the public hearing, excluding the applicant and applicant's counsel and staff, will be allowed 3 minutes, and they will be timed by our assistant secretary here. I ask you, please, because of the masks, I know they're difficult, please speak up, and we'll do our best to get through this. Okay, the matter for hearing tonight is case VC 20-002. It is a request for an appeal concerning the interpretation or administration of a regulation of the Land Development Code of the City of Colleyville, specifically appealing to allow infant swim lessons as a home occupation on Lot 2R, Block 2 of the Woodbriar Estates Addition, located at 417 Woodbriar Court. For those of you who may be watching on live stream or see this later, or for those of you in the audience who have attended other ZBA meetings, this is a different matter than you normally see. Most evenings we are dealing with variances, which requires the establishment of a hardship and various other kinds of things dealing with the contour of property. Tonight, this is an appeal from a decision by the staff of the City of Colleyville. And the appeal alleges that there is an error in an order issued by the City of Colleyville Code Enforcement regarding the administration of certain provisions of the Land Development Code. Consequently, testimony regarding hardship, regarding anything other than the error, is irrelevant. So if you'll keep that in mind, the fact that it's a good business, a bad business, or an indifferent business is irrelevant. The issue for us to decide tonight is whether the Land Development Code is construed by the staff of the City of Colleyville, prohibits the business that is being conducted on 417 Woodbriar Court. With that said, we will allow the applicant or the applicant's representative to present their case. We will then hear from staff. I will then open a public hearing to allow anyone who wishes to speak, and some of you filled out cards. The cards are in the back. If you wish to speak, I would ask you to fill those out, give them to our assistant here, and we will call on you as we go through those. Otherwise, and then at the end of the public hearing, I'll close the public hearing. We will allow the applicant a last rebuttal, and then the matter will be closed, and the commissioners will discuss our opinions, and I will entertain a motion to decide this matter, and then we will vote on it. So with those things in mind, are there any questions at this point? Anything else from any members of the board? All right, then I will ask the applicant or applicant's representative to come to the microphone, identify themselves, state their address, and proceed to present whatever matters they deem appropriate. By the way, if there are any documents presented tonight, those documents will remain the property of the city of Colleyville. So if you tender something that you're really attached to, or you don't have another copy of it, then you may want to think about whether you want to give it to us or not, because we're going to keep it. Okay, with that, please proceed.
My name is Paul Wineski, 1300 Summit Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas, and I am the attorney for Mr. and Mrs. Dela Cruz in this matter. But I would like to flip the script in this case and let Ms. Dela Cruz go first, and her presentation probably will be longer than mine, which will be the first time in human history that a citizen has out-talked a lawyer, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dela Cruz.
Okay. I've just written what I'd like to say. I guess
Okay.
you will have to decide the relevant.
Just for the record, because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, state your name and your address, even though I know we all know who you are.
Yes, okay. My name is Jennifer Dela Cruz, and I reside at 417 Woodbriar Court, Colleyville 76034. All right, so my written appeal, and I believe you all have a copy of that, goes into detail about drowning statistics and the structure of my business, but I'd like to highlight a few things. Drowning is the #1 cause of death in children ages 1 to 4 and second leading cause for older children. It is preventable. As of June 15th, MedStar published a 120% increase in drowning from May 1st to June 14th this year over last year. Of all years to shut down a business that saves lives, to do so during a time when more families are home and public facilities are either closed or operated at reduced capacity is concerning. One of my neighbors in her letter states there are other options for me to teach elsewhere. This would likely not have been the case this summer with COVID. 1 week after I was shut down, a 5-year-old little girl drowned at a birthday party right here in Colleyville. I began teaching this method after my oldest daughter fell in my mother's pool while we were all sitting outside. She was 20 months old. No one saw her go in. My sister saw her and got her in time. Drowning is fast and silent. We were lucky. This wake-up call led me to find an instructor in Dallas that taught this method, and in a few weeks, at 22 months old, she learned to self-rescue. I was so impressed, I learned to train to be an instructor myself. I'm part of a worldwide network of instructors that teach this method. Some have built their own elaborate facilities, some teach in hotel or rec center pools, and many teach in their backyard pools as I do. This is my 14th summer teaching these skills. 11 years in Bedford with very supportive neighbors and not one issue. I lived in a smaller house, smaller driveway. Houses were closer together than in our current half-acre home. While it is not my intention or desire to speak badly about my neighbors, I will be clear about our interactions. I would like to note that neither of these neighbors have issues have ever come directly to me to discuss their concerns, to allow me an opportunity to make adjustments that might accommodate these concerns. I have stated in my formal appeal and will state again that we were not aware of any parking requirements or zone restrictions concerning a business. I wish I'd known to look into these things. We would not have purchased the home had we known. Therefore, I was not initially requiring everyone to park in my driveway. When I became aware that there was an issue, I did everything I could to mitigate their concerns. First incident was 2 summers ago when Mrs. Reynolds got upset with one of my clients parking in front of her house. When I found out, I went over, baked bread, apologized, wanted to discuss the matter and how I could resolve it. I was greeted, unfortunately, with a scowl and told I couldn't solve the problem with a peace offering, and she would not accept the bread. It was a very uncomfortable conversation, but I told her we would have people park in my driveway as much as was possible. The rest of that summer and last summer, I occasionally called her on the phone and asked her when I saw her out front if there were any further issues with cars that she noticed. She was very kind going on forward and said that everything was fine. This summer again, no word from her that there are any problems until we received the notice from the city. We didn't want to assume that it was them, since the prior summer she said everything was fine. When the city gave us the initial go-ahead to continue, we solved the parking problem. I sent a letter to all my neighbors apologizing for any inconvenience, letting them know what we were doing to solve the problem, and asking them to please let me know if there were any concerns going forward. I have a copy of that letter for the board to review. No one called me with any concerns, and 3 of my neighbors offered their driveway. I contacted all of my clients with the new mandatory parking instructions, and we got several estimates for a circle drive to put in for occasional overflow. They filed another complaint, and I was officially shut down. Following week, I traveled to host pools for lessons. I realize my personal family situation is not relevant to your decision, but I have 6 children, my youngest having special needs, so the convenience of teaching from my home pool is what I need to be able to provide this valuable service for the city while still meeting the needs of my family. I could not add the 1.5 hours extra to my day. It just wasn't working, so the money wasn't worth it. We decided to teach for free, and my clients donated to a drowning prevention organization. Our attorney was able to get the stay of proceedings granted, so since then, up until now, I have been functioning as normal. I could not say no to these clients that have been on my schedule for weeks and months ahead of time and have them possibly drown if their lessons were not offered. Since this nightmare began, we learned that the Linharts across from us also had concerns. They also did not share, even after my letter, until I called and asked directly. It is not our desire to remain in a neighborhood where my business causes anyone any inconvenience. While I would hope that additional traffic and babies crying intermittently could be overlooked for a few months in the summer with the knowledge that a greater good of children's lives are being saved, that is unfortunately not the case on my street. If 2 neighbors feel so strongly that a quiet cul-de-sac is more important, then we'd prefer to move. I assure you, with 6 kids, our family's not a quiet addition to this cul-de-sac. I do understand their concerns. My driveway is right next to the Reynolds. Interestingly, if a few cars were allowed on the street, the noise of cars starting and stopping in my driveway, as stated in her letter, would be lessened. And the congestion mentioned by my other neighbor, where people waiting at the end of my driveway for someone to pull out, would be avoided if we had been able to proceed with the circle drive or allowed a car or 2 on the street. Either way, I only wish a civil conversation could have been had from the beginning. Nothing is set in stone, but we have been house hunting after this experience and feel very strongly that this is not the place for us. We believe God will make it clear a new location. However, with this in mind, we could have easily dropped this appeal and proceeded on with our plans and our family. But I feel very strongly that this is important and that we should have the freedom to provide a valuable service for the city or any other. So I would ask that you would consider our appeal and allow future homeowners, not just for my sake, but for anyone else that chooses to run a business like this that can save lives. If not for me, for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dela Cruz. Mr. Wineski, do you want to
Yes.
say a few other words?
Mr. Chair, I would. Again, Paul Wineski, 1300 Summit Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas, 76102. As you know, I do represent Mr. and Mrs. Dela Cruz. You've been provided a copy of a letter that I wrote to you setting out our legal position. You've now had an opportunity to discuss that with your city attorney in executive session. And so I just want to hit the high points, which is, in the first place, we've kind of had a moving target with this because every time they've interfaced with the city, we've had a different set of concerns raised. And so my letter goes beyond just the traffic and noise that was in the official last notice that they got and tries to address every instance where the city has thought that they may not be in compliance. So as to the noise, your ordinance says that no equipment or process shall cause noise detectable at the property line. And she doesn't use any equipment or process that is causing a noise. It's the little kids. In addition, the city took the position that it could not be a home occupation because it was not conducted entirely within a dwelling. And I pointed out that another section of your zoning ordinance says that it can be in the dwelling unit or an accessory building. And I take the position that's not fundamentally different than a swimming pool, other than the fact that it's not enclosed. The city also took the position that this is not being used as a private swimming pool just for the site occupants and their guests, and that it was being used as a business. But the pool is not being used as a business. It's not open to the public. Admission is not charged. It is only for the use of the Dela Cruz family and their invited guests, which include the children and their parents that are invited to have their lessons there. And it's also been suggested that that swimming lessons don't fit within the listing of permitted home occupations, but that list does include private educational, tutoring, and other similar activities. And again, private swimming lessons are private educational and/or tutoring activities. So Jennifer has already told you about the value of these services to the community, and I fully agree with that. And I would be available for any questions of a legal matter, but I do have a question of my own for the city attorney. I just wanted to confirm under Section 211.010 of the Texas Local Government Code, subsection D concerning these appeals says the board shall set a reasonable time for the appeal hearing and give public notice. But it goes on to say that the board shall decide the appeal at the next meeting, for which notice can be provided following the hearing and not later than the 60th day after the date the appeal is filed. So I understand the procedure laid out by the chair. I wanted to call to the city attorney's attention that the local government code actually requires that you wait until your next meeting to actually take a vote. Thank you very much. I'm available for any questions.
I have a question for you, Mr. Wineski. Do you
Yes, sir.
think that waiting to the next meeting, whenever that can be scheduled, is in your client's best interest, or would they like a decision promptly?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I just want to follow the state law, because I don't want to have anyone come up and question later and file a lawsuit saying that, well, the proper procedure wasn't followed, and now we have to go back and start over from scratch.
Okay. All right. At that point, I will call on the city staff to make their presentation, and then we may have questions for both the applicant and the city staff before I open the public hearing.
Thank you. So this is just an aerial map showing the property, 417 Woodbriar Court. And our zoning map, the property is zoned R20 single-family zoning, and it's residential in use. And this just shows you kind of the bird's eye view of the property as well, and you can see the pool back there. So before you tonight is, again, it's an interpretation or administration of a regulation of the land, an appeal of a regulation of the Land Development Code, specifically appealing to allow infant swim lessons at a home occupation use at this location. And this is the language out of Chapter 1 of the Land Development Code, which gives the information and the process for the Zoning Board of Adjustment to follow this evening. And the case history is as follows. On May 11th of 2020, the applicant received a code violation notice from the city's code enforcement officer for violation of the Land Development Code. On May 12th, the applicant contacted community development staff about the violation notice. And then on May 13th, the community development staff responded to the applicant and provided a copy of the home occupation use code section from the Land Development Code to the applicant for her review. On May 27th, the community development staff confirmed that the use of infant swim lessons at 417 Woodbriar Court was in violation and informed the applicant of this determination. And then on June 9th, the city received an appeal of the city's interpretation or administration of a regulation to allow infant swim lessons as a home occupation use. And again, the applicant is requesting an appeal concerning the interpretation or administration of the regulation to allow infant swim lessons as a home occupation use. And here is straight from the Land Development Code, the definition of what a home occupation is. And this is from the Land Development Code, Chapter 3, Section 3.12, out of the R20 single-family residential zoning. And it talks about, number 2, specifically about swimming pools. In the Land Development Code, Table 3.24B is a schedule of permitted principal uses, and it shows home occupation uses are allowed in the R20 zoning. They're permitted, but they do have some special land use standards, which is number 6. And these are those standards from the Land Development Code. We did receive 23 letters, and this is just a map that shows we did send notices within 200 feet of the property, and in the green are in favor, and then in the red are opposed. But then we have 19 additional letters that have been provided to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Oops.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me ask the members of the board if they have any questions first of the applicant or applicant's counsel. Let me start with Mr. Diggin.
So it's my understanding that she is not charging for these lessons or whatever they're being done?
When we were originally shut down, I did not charge for that first week, and then our attorney was able to get the stay of proceedings granted, and so from that point forward, I've been charging.
So it's your intention, if this is approved, if this is overturned, to charge for those lessons, correct?
Yes, for the remainder of the summer.
Applicant. Applicant, please. So what I'm understanding is you're still teaching the lessons, but you're not charging. Is that right?
I am charging now. For the 1 week after we were shut down, I was not charging, and they donated to a drowning prevention organization
Okay, so you're still teaching the lessons right now?
right now and charging.
Okay, now for the attorney. It's hard to hear sometimes, okay?
It's okay.
So did you ask for us not to vote on it tonight and give you extra time? Is that what I heard?
That's what the local government code requires. It's pretty black and white. It says you vote on it at your next meeting.
Okay, so here's the big picture. The big picture I see is she's still teaching lessons. So if we keep putting off, she keeps teaching lessons. So it sounds good to me, but, and I think we need to think about if she was told not to, but she's still doing it, and then you put us off. I mean, I'm looking at July here, you know, and the paperwork said 3 months and all that. Okay, so this could be maybe August, but by the time we get around to it. So I just wanted to make sure I heard that right. But she is still teaching lessons and taking money.
Because the law allows her to do so.
Okay. That's why I wanted to make sure.
I guess my concern is the same as Vice Chair Cameraman's, is if your client loses, she's been violating the ordinance every day with every lesson she's taught and charging for it. And the fine could be substantial.
Well, I understand that.
Okay,
However-
that's fine.
However, given the fact that enforcement is stayed during the conduct of an appeal, I don't think it's legally possible to go back and retroactively write 65 days worth of citations, but that's another issue.
Okay.
But I would point out that the fact that she's giving lessons in the pool and charging money for those lessons does not mean that that swimming pool is being operated as a business. It's a private swimming pool in which she is giving private swimming.
It's really not about the money. It's that the procedure is still going on.
Understand,
And that's what we're here to discuss.
understand.
Board Member Larry, do you have any questions? Okay, I have a question for the city attorney.
Yes.
What's your position with respect to we need to delay to the next meeting to vote?
Okay, so what he is citing is the local government code, where it does give a description as to these types of appeals. And it does say that the board shall decide the appeal at the next meeting for which notice can be provided following the hearing, and not later than the 60th day after the appeal is filed. What I would mention, though, is that these are, state procedures. At the beginning of this, in 008, these state procedures actually allow the city and the Board of Adjustment to actually adopt their own procedures that would supersede. Now, the board itself hasn't adopted such procedures, but the city has in its local, in the LDC under your jurisdiction. It doesn't specify that the hearing or the decision has to be made or delayed, But what it does say is you have the jurisdiction to hear these, to authorize, and to both hear and decide. So I would argue that based on the language in the LDC, you could actually hear and decide in the same night if you chose to do so.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. All right, we have heard from the applicant, and now, and from the staff, are there any further questions of staff?
I have one.
Yes,
We've heard the applicant's rationale for being able to go ahead and continue. What is the rationale from the city? The counterpoint to what the applicant has requested?
I think that's addressed to you, Ms. Rafe.
As we reviewed the language found in the Land Development Code and took into account zoning-specific land use regulations and allowed uses as a home occupation, it was determined that it did not fully conform and therefore was deemed not to be an allowable use.
Okay, other questions of staff? Mr. Diggin, you first.
Okay, I have a question. We see all these permissible businesses, and I'm having difficulty wrapping my head around all these other businesses are allowed in your home, where a business that teaches at swimming is not. That's one. And the second part, how does this relate? There's a lot of tennis courts in this city, and there's a lot of baseball cages in some of the bigger estates, batting cages. How does that apply where tennis would be allowed, but this wouldn't? Or batting cages would be allowed, and people are giving lessons on those in those facilities. I just trying to wrap my head around the fact that why is this so narrowly cut out when it's so broad in the rest of it? I mean, if you have home hobby shops, garage sales, tutoring, arts and crafts, you possibly could have the same amount of cars, if not more, at that home. So I'm asking the city, how is this pool exercise different from the permissible ones? And how are we monitoring, again, tennis courts, batting cages, which we know are giving lessons? How is that monitored?
Yes, Mr. Hunter.
So I'm unaware of any private tutoring in relation to tennis and baseball. I suppose that we would have to evaluate it the same as we do or did with the private swimming lessons.
But it seems to me that the ordinance says what it says, and it says certain things are permitted, and if it doesn't say it's permitted, then unless some way, like you're saying, we can get it within one of those qualifications,
Right.
then it's not permitted.
Right, and I think that's ultimately what the decision was based off of. It wasn't to our comfort level explicitly listed out to be a permitted use, and therefore it was deemed not permitted.
But it's not in the exclusions.
If I can touch on that, just how does the city interpret the phrase private educational music and dance tutoring? Is the word educational attached to music and dance?
Right, exactly, that's what
tutoring?
we did, yeah.
So educational only means educational music and educational dance tutoring. Educational in and of itself isn't, the private educational isn't its own phrase. Is that correct?
That's how we interpreted it, yeah.
Okay, other questions of staff? If not, I will open the public hearing. We have one person, and I'm going to call the people who want to speak in support of the position of the appellant here, Ms. Dela Cruz. And I believe the person I have that wants to actually speak in support of it is Bruce Bell. Mr. Bell, if you will come up, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Bruce Bell, 158 Winchester Drive in Euless. I know one thing here, that this young man that we're raising here, this saved his life to be going to these swim lessons. It makes a big deal. It makes a big deal in a young person's life, and you do this with an infant, you could, potentially save or ruin a family's life over it. I don't have a lot to say about it, but this, comparing this to educational tutoring, same thing. Bible studies, all the things that are going to cause traffic on a street. I would say that this ranks on the top of it. This young man right here could not swim when he went there, and now he's not afraid of the water. He learned to rescue himself, and that's what it's all about. I don't have much to say, though, but I do support Jennifer and her business here, and it's made our family a lot happier and safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We appreciate you being here and taking the time to present your views. I just had another card for someone who wants to speak in support of the appellant, and I apologize. I know I'm going to mispronounce the last name. Katie Gaetzke? Yes. I got it right. That's amazing. Please come up, state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Katie Gaetzke. I live here in Colleyville at 3205 Eaton Circle in Colleyville, Texas. My infant is currently going to Miss Dela Cruz's business. I'm a pool owner here in Colleyville. I'm also the mother of a separate special needs child that does not go to her program. So this is I've never been in this building before, but this I felt compelled to go to. As being a special needs parent, I can't take my family or my kid just anywhere. We've been rejected by churches, schools, lots of different lessons. I've been through lots of tutors, none in Colleyville. So this is a unique situation for me. Most of the time, my family is having to go to lessons privately. So if these type of businesses aren't allowed, where are we supposed to go? There's not everyone who's equipped. She takes special needs children. Must this be somewhere else? I have to go to Dallas or Arlington, or I currently go to one therapy center for one of my kids in South Lake, another one in Grapevine. They were shut down during the pandemic. They're still not operating at full capacity. There's a year wait list for all of them. I'm a pool owner. What if my child was on a year wait list because I couldn't bring my other child with me if I need to? I can't just find a babysitter. I'm personally trained by therapists to watch one of my children. If these small type of lesson businesses are not allowed locally, where do we go? There needs to be more of them, and if anything, the pandemic's shown us that. My daughter's therapy center is still only at 25% capacity. This is a children's health center. So some of these businesses, I ask you, this isn't just about lessons to me, and I was also almost drowned as a child, but it's about, in this time, if we don't open this window, not just for swim lessons, but for lessons, and these very, very under-shortaged capacity places right now, what does that do to our community? So that's why I felt so compelled. Sorry I get emotional, but it's an emotional time. And on this particular topic, this isn't just a business. This is a business that also takes special needs children, which is not common. Sometimes they're not equipped to. They're not trained to. It's not that easy. So I do ask you to rule in favor of maybe permits needed. I'm sure there may be, this or that to look into it, but again, if this is limited, where do we go? And how many people are able to? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaetzke. We appreciate your time and appearance here today. I don't have any other cards of anybody else who wants to speak in favor of the motion. Oh, we have another card here. Did I misplace it? That's in opposition. No, I'm taking the ones in support right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have anybody else in support of the appellant. Is there someone else who hasn't filled out a card? Okay, if you'll fill out the cards right back there behind you, and then give them to Ms. Rafe. And here's another one. Is this in support or opposition? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna come to the oppositions in a minute, but I want to let the supporters move first. Thank you. All right, Mr. John Wright.
Good evening. My name is John Wright. I live at 4224 Chestnut Street in Fort Worth, Texas. Jennifer is my daughter. And I'm here to speak just as a concerned citizen of the state of Texas, North Texas in particular. This is an amazing state. It's an amazing county, and I'm proud to be here. We were born in Baltimore. We've been here 25 years, and we love Texas and North Texas in particular. Just as a citizen, I'm a little confused and bewildered how it's even possible that someone who is doing a life-saving business doesn't have the right or freedom to do that. And as a result, the possibility could be that a child or two or three might drown in the city, and or my daughter and her husband and their 6 children will leave this city and move to another city. And gone are their taxes and their support and their influence, all of which I think would make Colleyville a better city. So I just ask that you would look at the big picture and consider that if this ordinance allows for singing and dance lessons, that it would adjust this to allow to save children's lives from drowning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. We appreciate your time. All right. I'll try it. Haley Nolasko. All right. Well, that's 2 out of 2 for me. That's unusual.
My name is Haley Nolasko, and my daughter Emerson is currently
What's your
in
address, Ms. Nolasko?
my address. I am a mother to one of Jennifer's clients.
Street address.
Street
Oh, my
address.
address, I'm sorry. 806 Majestic Oaks Court, Mansfield, Texas.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. My daughter is currently taking lessons with Jennifer because she had a swimming accident that led me to attend classes with my friend Courtney and her daughter. And She is a very professional human being with her classes. She runs them so smoothly. The traffic on her street is 0 to none because she provides 3 parking spots for those attending the lessons. And she has kept us, as her clients, very informed about these city council decisions when she could not practice teaching and taking money for those lessons. She continued because she did not want those students to end up without lessons, the life-saving lessons that she provides. So she went to friends' pools in nearby cities who allowed her to use her pool and did not charge for these lessons. And asked that we donate to organizations that fundraise for those who've been affected by drowning incidents. So she has abided by the law, to my knowledge, as completely as she knew how. And when she was told that, just like any other appeal, they could continue practicing until they appear before the city council, she abided appropriately until she heard otherwise. And I would ask that, just like the gentleman before, asked you to consider that if a teacher can teach piano or tennis or batting lessons to benefit their child, that infant safety rescue swimming is, I would say, above all of those in their importance. So I would ask that you make an amendment to your city laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nolasko. Let me, just so everyone will understand, this board has no power, none, to amend ordinances enacted by the city council of the city of Colleyville. That is beyond our jurisdiction. We cannot do that. And I've heard a couple of people say tonight, we want you to change the ordinance. We don't have any power to do that. We can only interpret the ordinance with respect to how the city interpreted it, whether it's right or it's wrong. If the ordinance is to be changed, there must be an application made to the city council of the city of Colleyville to do that. We can't do it. Okay. The next speaker is Courtney Callaway.
Hello, I'm Courtney Callaway, and I am at 3302 McCamey Oaks Trail in Arlington, Texas. I am as well for Jennifer continuing with lessons. I know that you just stated that y'all are not able to change anything, but I know that we come in support of her. I am also a parent of a child who is able to take lessons through Jennifer right now. She actually will be done with her lessons this week. It has made a huge impact in our life. And I think I'm a little confused by what you mentioned earlier, as in it's really up to y'all of offering some lessons and not other lessons. So that's why we are here to discuss that or to tell our opinion in that. But basically, I was one of the people who did write a letter to the board members about how that had impacted our lives. Having the lessons, it is a life-saving teaching that she is giving to so many babies and children. It's a specific life-saving class. It's not just any lesson. And so we are really, really shocked by not being able to have our kids come. I drive 26 minutes, 4 days a week for 6 weeks to have this. And so it's very powerful and important, and I know a lot of people feel the same way. So we'd hope that that would be something that she can continue. And as a person and her family, they operate above reproach and have tried to be that in their neighborhood. So hopefully their neighbors will understand that even though there might be a little bit of cars, you live in a neighborhood with people and visitors, and there's always going to be a little bit of cars coming and going, but she goes above reproach in making sure that nobody parks on the street and hoping that will be helpful. And I've never really seen anybody on the street when I come. Everybody parks in the driveway. So if I were her neighbor, I would be very proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Callaway, for being here tonight. All right, the last card I have in support of the applicant is, I believe it's Christy Rodriguez.
Hello, my name is Christy Rodriguez, and my address is 2106 Highland Meadow Drive in Colleyville. So I am a Colleyville resident. I'm also a pool owner. I know we're not necessarily supposed to speak to the character of Jennifer and Randy, but I feel like I need to at least address that because I've known them for over 20 years. And so I know their character, and I know how Jennifer feels about this being a life-saving business, not swim lessons. But it's been probably 15 years since my kiddos went through the training, and my youngest did. And so what I really want to ask, if I can, at least the 60-day extension, because when we were talking about what about these other kind of lessons, what about people who do scuba lessons? There are other residents doing swimming lessons. Now, I'm not the type of resident to go and tattletale, but I'm just saying it is going on, and so I think it's something that should be looked into, at least give them the extension. That's what I'm asking for her, because she does, like the other young lady said, everything above reproach, everything with honesty and integrity, every single aspect of what they do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. We appreciate you being here. Those are all the cards I have speaking in favor of the applicant or the appellant. And I have 4 cards, 2 of which I believe wish to speak in opposition. So first I'll call on Mr. Jeff Linhart.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Linhart, 412 Woodbriar Court, Colleyville, Texas. I'd like to start off by saying I bear no ill will towards our neighbors, nor do I in principle object to what they're doing or the reason they're doing it. However, I'd like to point out that my wife and I have lived in our current residence for 19 years. We moved to that particular location and selected it because it was on a cul-de-sac, and thus we expected there'd be little to no through traffic or excessive traffic other than for the residents. In fact, to the point where we get a little concerned when people think it's a through street and come tearing up and back, finding out it's not. So I'm a big believer in the rule of law. If I do something incorrect, I expect to be called on it. If I can correct it, I'll correct it. If I can't, then I deal with the consequences. So all I'm saying is my biggest concern is the fear with more traffic than we're used to, a lot of small children, and not knowing how the parents are controlling them. The one day I could back out of my driveway and inadvertently hit a child and have to live with the consequences of that for the rest of my life. That is not something I want to look forward to. However, all I'm asking from you is to take the law as it's written, adjudicate it appropriately, and make a decision based on the regulations in effect. If the regulations allow this to go forward, so be it. If it does not, so be it. That's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Linhart. We appreciate you being here and your time. I have also a card from Janet Linhart.
Good evening. I'm Janet Linhart, 412 Woodbriar Court. We live across from the Dela Cruzes. I wanted to point out a couple of things, and one was when they had put up there about where you can conduct business in a residence would be in your home or in a building. goes back to, this is a swimming pool, it's not in your home, it's not in your building. That's one point I wanted to make. The next point is, and I know that you had brought up about people giving tennis lessons or tutoring or doing other type of dance lessons, things like that in your home. The difference here is those lessons are one person coming into your home for an hour-long or a 2-hour session, whatever it be. What they haven't brought up is these are 10-minute lessons. So for instance, this morning between 9:55 and 10 a.m., there were 5 cars trying to get in and out of this driveway, backing up, pulling in, pulling out, letting one person in, and it's a constant jockeying why these lessons are going on. I am not saying these lessons are a bad thing. It's a good thing she's doing, but it's not appropriate in this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linhart. The last card I have in opposition is Mr. Ernest Reynolds III.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Ernest Reynolds now. My dad died, and my grandfather died, so I am Ernest Reynolds III, but I represent myself and my wife, who sent in a letter but is under medical instruction and can't come. And we live at 413 Woodbriar Court. I know I don't have much time. I want to correct the record, though. You were told that my wife's been called repeatedly. That's not true. And you were told that our next-door neighbor came with some cake and was treated rudely. That's not true. She was just told, I don't want some cake, just follow the rules. These people next door don't want to follow the rules. We hear noise, we hear screaming. Our daughter, who's almost 40, was proud to become a trained swimming teacher. She worked during the summer for the pool at Hearst, and she worked here at Imler. But the difference was that's a business location. She trained babies and older children. She played by the rules. You've heard people from several towns. This morning, when I left to go to my office, there were already a couple of cars. When I got back, there were 3 cars parked back there. We hear noise, we hear screaming of little babies, one thing and another. It's disruptive. We'd like to be able to have the quiet enjoyment of our property and our neighborhood, and we'd like to see the law enforced. Finally, I'd like to point out, you're correct. This is the ZBA. I served on the ZBA here at one time for about a decade. No one's asking for a variance tonight. And you don't have the power, though several people from several cities have asked you to do this, either directly or indirectly, to change the code. What you're being asked to do tonight is to give a slap on the wrist to the city manager and to the code compliance officer, who I respectfully submit worked hard, did the right thing, and made the right decisions. I ask you not to do that. Lives are important. Teaching is important. Laws and rules are important. Please enforce the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I appreciate you being here tonight. Those are all the cards I have. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at the public hearing? All right, if not, I'm going to close the public hearing. We will give the applicant or the applicant's counsel a chance to make a final closing statement, and then the commissioners, board members may have questions for the applicant or for counsel, but whoever, Ms. Dela Cruz or Mr. Wineski.
Good evening, members, and thank you very much for your time and attention tonight. As far as the legality and following the rules, let me point out to you, and I have highlighted this in yellow in my letter that I sent to the commission members on the second page. The listing of home occupations in 324.C.6.F that we've been talking about tonight is not exclusive. The last phrase in the sentence is, and other similar activities, but excluding medical and law offices and a few others. We're not in the list of exclusions. the list of permitted uses is not exclusive. If it is similar to the uses listed, then we believe the ordinance should be interpreted to allow that use just as the other uses in the list are allowed. And we believe that private swimming lessons are certainly similar to any other private educational or tutoring to be done on a person's property. So we believe that that Jennifer is fully in compliance with the city codes, at least as we interpret them and as we believe a reasonable person should interpret them. And that is our position. We're not here to violate the law or break the rules or ignore them. We're here to follow them. We believe we have been, and we would like to continue to. Thank you very much.
I do have a question for you on the last point you made regarding the other similar activities but excluding. I see a semicolon in front of the and I read it as other such activities to relate to medical offices, auto repair, beauty shops, pet grooming services, and kennels.
Sir, that's not the way the sentence reads. There are semicolons between each of these general categories of businesses. There's a triple dash after that phrase, and other similar activities, and then it goes into the exclusions. So, no, similar activities modifies all of the words that came before that. And I can quote you the actual canon of judicial construction that Justice Antonin Scalia wrote in his book with Brian Garner. It's called the series qualifier canon. And this phrase at the end of the series qualifies everything that comes before it, and is certainly separated by a triple dash from the ones that are excluded.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did the applicant want to add anything in addition? Okay, thank you, Ms. Dela Cruz. Okay, then we can open this up for, well, first thing, my view is that the city attorney is correct and we can decide this issue tonight. And so unless the board disagrees with that, we will have our discussion and decide the issue tonight. Is there any disagreement?
No.
All right, very good. Then we'll proceed with the discussion among the board members of the application. And let me start, I guess, with Board Member Deacon. Any comments that you would like to make?
The only thing I would say, add to this, I still have troubles wrapping my head around, it's not, pools and things are not excluded. And I agree with the attorney, other similar activities would include tennis, swimming, and whatnot. I think the other consideration when this goes forward is how many people. But someone made the comment there's only one or two. I've seen tennis lessons where there's 4 or 5 people at them at a home. So that means there's that many cars. So that's the only part I don't see pools excluded. I see it as similar to the other activities that are going on.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
I'm focusing on the phrase that I repeated earlier, that I think the city misinterprets, the phrase private educational, music and dance tutoring. I think that you take those 3 words, exclusively educational tutoring, to me includes swim lessons in your backyard. That's all I have.
Okay. Vice Chairman Cameron.
Well, I had a couple of questions or things that I heard.
Absolutely. Whoever you want
From
to
the applicant, if this is a true statement that I heard, and I think I read it somewhere, that the lessons are every 10 minutes? Is that what I'm hearing? And not a half an hour or an hour? And is it one-on-one or is it one-on-3?
Yes, ma'am. It's one-on-one, 10 minutes, 4 days a week. So the same child, if her lesson is 10 o'clock, she comes 10 o'clock Monday through Thursday. 10
So
minutes.
how many minutes between each 10 minutes?
It just depends. I schedule back-to-back, but they don't always fill. And that's the reason I schedule
So
back-to-back.
we're saying there could be,
There could be, at the max, there could be 6 cars within 1 hour. For example, if they are all single children, no siblings. So if I often have 2 or 3 together, 2 siblings or even 3. And so that would mean 1 car for 3 students. or it could mean 3 cars. So it fluctuates. It just depends on what hour I have my schedule online and they sign up for what works for that family.
So my next question would be, because I'm obviously the mother here, what does children do while they're waiting? Is there playground equipment? Do they sit in their cars? What are they doing while they're waiting for their turn?
Well, they're just asked to only arrive 10 minutes before their lesson. So again, if they're siblings, that would be a little bit different. They would wait for their sibling. But they're asked to arrive 10 minutes before so they can get their suit on and be in the pool. So some allow them on the playground equipment, some don't. With obviously this situation going on now, there's less of that, of course.
So you do have something that they can play with?
I do
or
have
something.
something. Mhm.
And is it enclosed so they won't be in your driveway or on the street?
Is what enclosed? I'm sorry.
The playground equipment or whatever you have.
Yes,
that they
that's on
might
the
play.
far side, the opposite side of the Reynolds. So I think the situation is tricky where when they pull into my driveway, I have the 3 spots, I marked them. That driveway is right next to the Reynolds driveway.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
But,
If
yes,
people
so
are
they're out
coming
of
in
their
and out,
cars.
and the neighbors
That-
next door going down the street, are those kids contained? That's what I'm
They're in
asking.
my backyard, yes. Mhm,
Okay,
mhm. Yes, ma'am.
all right, Thank you.
I have a couple of questions here, and this may have been covered, but I don't think so. Is there a state, county, or city certification required for, 1, the instructor, and 2, the facility, the pool, the whatever it is, to be allowed to be able to do this? And that's my first question.
Yes, sir. I am trained by the Infant Aquatic Survival Method. I was trained by a master instructor in Dallas. It's a 6-week training, 6 hours each day. There are only a few instructors that are qualified to teach that. Again, we're a worldwide network of instructors trained with this method. So someone mentioned other swimming lessons. This is very different. That's why we do the 10 minutes. It's very intensive training, and that's why we're able to accomplish. I've had I certainly don't like to speak bad about other lessons. However, I've had many parents come from Emler or other places like that that have taught their children, and they still, after years of lessons, don't know how to swim. And with this method, it's not me, it's just the particular training I've gone through. With this particular method, within 6 weeks, a child can self-rescue. 3 and up can swim the length of an entire pool, and a baby at 6 months can roll onto their back and float until rescued. My youngest with Down syndrome is 2, and she can self-rescue. She plays on the steps often and several times. I turn my back for a second and turn back, and she's floating in the pool. I have to pull her out. But it's an amazing program. I love it. I love teaching it, but it's very different than traditional swim lessons.
Okay, I still didn't get an answer to my question.
I am sorry.
Is there a state,
Yes, it's not a state
County?
certification. It is
and
certification.
you
for
are
infant aquatics.
certified by them?
I am certified.
Both
14 years
you and the pool area?
And the pool, I have insurance to cover teaching at my pool. Is that what you were asking?
Now, I think Board Member Valerio is asking you if you would have sitting around your pool a state license that says, I can do this because I'm certified to do it. My pool has been checked out by the state of Texas and by whoever inspects pools and
My
says,
pool
I'm
has not been
entitled to do it.
certified in any way, no, sir.
Okay, I think that's what you were asking.
Yes, that is it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think you had a second question, right? Or did you?
That was it. That's good.
Okay. Sure, I've got the facts right because I took them from your letter, Ms. De La Cruz.
Yes, sir.
You say you teach 4.5 hours a day, Monday through Thursday,
Yes, 3 hours in the morning, hour and a half in the evening.
10 minutes per session, which would be 5 or 6 children an hour.
Yes, sir.
So in one day, you would have 26 to 28 children.
If I have a full schedule, but that's not often.
And in a week, you would have 100.
It's the same students repeating.
Well,
But yes.
there's going to be 100 students there, 100 people there at different times, which per month would be 400 to 500 children per month from May to September.
I guess you would say that many visits.
From May to September, that means there's 1,900 children going through this cul-de-sac in that time period, and
No,
that
there will
doesn't-
not be 1,900 children, but if you would like to point out that they would be visiting that often.
I'm just adding up the numbers that you had in your letter.
Correct, but
I
the
guess
same
my math
child
could be
comes
wrong.
the same time for 6 weeks.
But what I'm talking about is, there is a 6-minute period or a 10-minute period where there's a child there. I don't care whether it's really the child that's there Monday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, it's a child that's there.
Yes.
And the total number of those children over this period is gonna be 1,900. And that doesn't count when you are teaching on Friday and Saturday, which you say in your application that sometimes you do. Not always, but sometimes you do.
Yes, on an occasion to make up for illness.
And I guess my question is, what is your response to the requirement that if there's this many children coming through here, that there is no traffic being generated in a greater volume than would be expected in this residential neighborhood?
I have addressed that in my letter, and I did say that there is additional traffic, and I do understand that.
Okay, okay,
I think my biggest concern is it's a cul-de-sac.
Yes.
yes.
And I don't live in a cul-de-sac and never have bought in a cul-de-sac. I think that's a different type of person that would buy in a cul-de-sac. They're usually quieter people. They want their kids to be able to walk out and not get hit. You know, they just like to have a little piece of the earth without someone always going by. And that's the part, he was doing the math and so was I.
Yes.
It's not that it's 1,900 children, different children. It's bodies that are coming and cars that are bringing those bodies. I see the word infant swim lessons, but an infant to me is not an infant after a year old, and I'm hearing older children are coming. So that, I think, is what we're addressing. It's not a matter of, I'm a mom. I made sure from 4 months on, my children had swim lessons. I can relate to all the mothers who spoke. But we're here to address what the rules were given to us, no matter what it is, whether it's a fence, a driveway. I wanted 2 garages. I only had room for 1. It's the kind of thing, whatever the rule is, we have to abide by it unless we ask for it to be changed. And I don't know if you've thought about that.
The
That's all
cul-de-sac
I'm
or
saying.
asking the rule to be changed?
Well, because when I read it, I don't see swimming lessons. I see all this other, what it can be, what it cannot be. That's all I'm saying. But I don't want you to think I or a lot of us are against swimming lessons. No.
I understand.
That is not true. We're just asked to see if the rules were followed by the employees of Colleyville. And if not, then we want to correct it. That's all.
Okay, if nothing further, unlike our usual motions with respect to variances, the motion here would be a motion to affirm the decision of the staff, or a motion to reverse the decision of the staff, or partially reverse the decision of the staff. So I will open it up. If someone wants to make a motion, either way, then I will entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion that we reverse.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Deacon to reverse. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Deacon, if you vote in favor of the motion means to reverse the city staff. Commissioner Deacon,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
the chair votes no.
Would you please repeat that? You were
Which
looking that
part?
way and we have masks on.
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure I heard it right.
Yeah, the motion to affirm has been made. I'm sorry, the motion to reverse the decision of the city staff has been made by Board Member Deacon, seconded by Board Member Anderson. They voted in favor of the motion to reverse. I voted no.
Reverse means that we thought they were wrong. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
If we vote reverse, that means that we're saying the staff's wrong.
Okay.
Okay, so if you vote
My
in
vote
favor-
is no.
Okay, you vote no. All right,
No.
no. All right, the motion fails, and the decision of the City of Colleyville staff is affirmed. I don't believe there is any further business unless I have missed something.
I would just like to maybe briefly go over the appellate rules for the applicant, that she does have a right to appeal.
Certainly, please do.
Yeah, just briefly, and I'm sure your attorney has already may have briefed you on this as well. You do have the opportunity to appeal this decision to a district court, both under our local law as well as the state code. Just wanted to highlight, you only have 10 days to do so.
Thank you. I really appreciate the city attorney's contribution on that. If there is nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make
A
a
motion to adjourn, second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.